This motorcycle was supposed to save Britain's motorcycle industry, but instead, it helped bury it forever, and it's not the only one. Today we're talking about 6 motorcycles so cursed, so catastrophic, that they destroyed the very brands that built them. Some were engineering gambles gone horribly wrong, others were victims of bad timing, and a few were just doomed from the start. Before we get to the bike that literally lit its own company on fire, let's start with a machine that promised perfection and delivered disaster. Bimota was always the engine whisperer of the motorcycle world. They had a formula that worked. Take a bulletproof Japanese engine, pair it with a handcrafted Italian frame, and create handling so sharp it felt like the bike could read your mind. These machines were the Ferraris of the two-wheeled world, rare, exotic, and expensive, but worth every penny to those who could afford them. But if you ever think a brand is just too big to fail, sometimes all it takes is one wrong step for it to all burn to the ground. In the late 90s, Bimota decided they didn't need anyone else's engines. They would build their own, a crucial mistake that would come back to bite them. But before we get to that, what exactly did they build? They built the V-Do, a 500cc two-stroke V-twin with fuel injection. It looked like a GP bike for the street. Sleek, featherweight, and packed with promise. Sounds like a Grand Slam engine, right? It does. And then reality hits. The fueling system was a nightmare. Bikes surged, coughed, and stalled unpredictably. Some wouldn't even start. Customers who had paid premium prices returned them in frustration. Bimota tried to salvage the project by switching back to carburetors, but the damage to their reputation was irreversible. The V-Do wasn't just a flop, it sank the company. Lawsuits piled up, cash drained away, and by the year 2000, Bimota was bankrupt, all because a company was too ambitious. Classic Icarus story. Before that implosion, another famous name had already tried a wild engineering gamble. Norton's rotary engine sport bikes in the late 80s and early 90s were meant to be their big comeback, a bold leap into the future. While most manufacturers were sticking to tried and true parallel twins or inline fours, Norton went all in on the compact, lightweight Wankel rotary engine. It revved sky high, had fewer moving parts, and promised silky smooth power delivery with less wear. On paper, it looked like a revolution in the making. The reality? Far less glamorous. The engines ran scorching hot, so hot they'd bake a rider's legs on a summer day. They drank fuel like a 70s muscle car and demanded specialized mechanics who actually understood rotary tech, which almost no local shops did. And then there was the sound. Not the familiar motorcycle growl enthusiasts loved, but a strange jet turbine-like whine that left purists cold. The bikes were fast and unique, but maybe too unique. Sales never came close to saving Norton's already fragile finances. By the time a small cult following started to appreciate the design, it was too late. The rotary gamble didn't spark a revolution like they intended. It just left Norton stranded, way ahead of a future that never arrived. If you think that's rough, wait until you hear what happened to the Indian 4. The late 1930s was the jewel of Indian's crown. A motorcycle that blended smooth, turbine-like power with elegant styling and long-distance comfort. It wasn't just transportation, it was a statement. Riders adored its refinement, effortless cruising, and the prestige of owning one. In many ways, it was America's answer to the luxury touring machines of Europe. But then Indian made a fatal mistake. In an effort to modernize their flagship, they redesigned the 4's engine. On paper, the updates were meant to improve reliability and performance. In reality, the opposite happened. The new motor ran hotter, produced less horsepower, and had more mechanical issues than the tried-and-true original. Loyal owners were baffled. Why fix what wasn't broken? To make matters worse, the 4 was already far pricier than Harley-Davidson's simpler, more practical V-twins. Without a clear performance advantage, that price premium became hard to justify. After World War II, when the market rebounded, Harley delivered affordable, rugged bikes that backyard mechanics could keep running forever. The Indian 4 couldn't match that appeal. Many historians mark this redesign as the tipping point, the moment Indian's slow march toward its first major collapse truly began. This is sounding all too similar to what is currently happening in China, where they are trying everything and anything and putting innovation at the core of their companies. But could this come to backfire? Could brands like CF Moto collapse much like these? To find out, make sure you hit that subscribe button. 99.9% of you aren't subscribed, and I'd love to hit 1,000 subscribers. I will continue to cover the news on the latest motorcycle models and engines, while also talking about history lessons that we can all learn from. Fast forward to the late 90s. Another once dormant American name returned with the Excelsior Henderson Super X. In the late 90s, Harley-Davidson couldn't build cruisers fast enough. Demand was so intense that some buyers waited years for their dream bike. Spotting an opportunity, the resurrected Excelsior Henderson, a brand that hadn't produced a motorcycle since the 1930s, but still carried legendary weight among vintage enthusiasts, launched the Super X. It was a head-turner, sweeping fenders, flowing Art Deco lines, and a mirror's worth of chrome, all paying tribute to the company's glory years. The sales pitch was simple. Why wait for a Harley when you can ride this now? But the market didn't bite. Most modern riders had never heard of the brand. Harley loyalists stayed loyal. Japanese cruisers like the Honda Shadow and Yamaha V-Star offered more reliability at a lower price, and the Super X suffered from early production issues, inconsistent fit and finish, parts shortages, and mechanical teething problems. As a small startup entering one of the most competitive motorcycle segments, Excelsior Henderson had zero margin for error. The Super X wasn't bad, but it wasn't perfect, and buyers noticed. Millions were burned through in months, and within a year of its debut, the factory closed for good. And that wasn't the only comeback story that ended in heartbreak. The Laverta 750S and its naked twin, the Laverta Strike, was meant to be the proud return of one of Italy's most respected motorcycle names. Back in the 1970s, Laverta was a serious player, building big, bold machines that could run with the best. But by the mid-90s, the brand was living in Ducati's shadow. Ducati had the race wins, the allure, and a loyal fan base, while Japanese sport bikes dominated the performance market with speed, technology, and value. On paper, the 750S and Strike had a lot going for them: sharp, aggressive styling, a respected name, and the charm of a European sport bike. But once riders got in the saddle, the problem showed. They were heavier than the Japanese competition, slower in outright performance, and lacked the exotic flair to pull riders away from Ducati. And despite those flaws, they carried a premium price tag that put them out of reach for budget-conscious buyers. Without racing victories to boost credibility, sales were lukewarm at best. Laverta didn't have the resources for a second shot, and within just a few years, the lights went out for good. But the most heartbreaking case takes us back to the late 60s. The BSA Rocket 3 and its near twin, the Triumph Trident, were supposed to be Britain's knockout punch in the late 60s, a bold response to the growing wave of Japanese motorcycles. Both bikes packed three-cylinder engines, delivering smooth, torquey power and respectable top-end speed. Their styling was sleek for the era, and the triples offered a unique alternative to the parallel twins dominating British showrooms. On paper, they had the potential to turn the tide, but timing slayed them. Development delays meant that by the time the Rocket 3 and Trident finally reached buyers, Honda had already changed the game with the CB750, a four-cylinder masterpiece with an electric starter, disc brakes, bulletproof reliability, and a lower price tag. Against that, the British triple suddenly felt outdated before they'd even had a chance to shine. Worse still, BSA and Triumph split their limited resources to market two nearly identical machines under different names, effectively competing against themselves while Japan surged ahead. For BSA, the Rocket 3 was the last big gamble. It didn't just fail to stop the Japanese, it marked the beginning of the end. Within a few years, the proud British motorcycle industry had collapsed, never to reclaim its former glory. China is seriously trying to reinvent the wheel with brand new engines and crazy new models. If you want to learn more about the biggest Chinese brand that's making waves in international markets, I made a full video on them, and you can watch it now by clicking on screen. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe.